All right, hi everybody. So, I've been getting a lot of questions like this. People saying, well, Mike, we get it what you're saying about the rate hike being a fiscal expansion and that it's a net addition to income. We get that part. But isn't it true that much of that, maybe all of that, will be offset by a reduced amount of borrowing because borrowing costs go up, right? Now, I guess that's a legitimate question. So, I wanted to answer that. And actually, I think I did answer that a while back in a video, but I was too lazy to go look the video up. And anyway, I kind of wanted to do the research again. So what I did was I went and I looked up the data for interest rates, the Fed funds rate, going back to the 1970s because, that's when we started to see those big increases in interest rates. And I also looked up the data for total loans and leases at commercial banks. So that's a very, very important monetary metric. Okay, so when you start in 1977, when we saw that first big period of interest rate increases, starting with Arthur Burns at the Fed and then followed by Volcker, we went from 5% all the way up to 19% on the Fed funds rate from 1977 to 1981. Okay, that was almost a quadrupling of the interest rate in that 4 year period. And guess what? Total loans and leases increased by over 60%. Okay, so it was a huge increase in total loans and leases. So then I looked at another period. I looked at the period from 1993 to 1995 when the Fed took the interest rate from 3% up to 6%. So we had a doubling of the interest rate in that time. And in that time, we saw an increase in total loans and leases of about 34%. So, about half as much, a little bit more than half of the increase, the growth in loans that we saw in that 1977 to 1981 period. But nonetheless, no contraction, a doubling of interest rates. We saw a 34% increase in loans, all right? Then I looked at the period from 2003 to 2007. That's when the Fed put the interest rate from 1% up to 5.25%. Okay, and in that situation, we got an increase in loans of 28%. So again, we got an increase in total loans. Not as much as the previous period, but we did get an increase, okay? And there might have been other reasons for that. For example, we know that household debt burdens as a percentage of disposable income was at a very high level. Actually, in 2007, was at a record high level. So you really didn't have the ability, households didn't have the ability to handle more debt or higher rates. And finally, I looked at a period when rates went down. And what better period than the recent one when we saw from 2007 until now when rates went from 5.25 down to 0 and stayed at 0. Okay. And we got an increase there of 37%. So we did get an increase there, but about equal to what we got when the Fed raised rates in what did I say, from 1993 to 1995, where there was a doubling of rates, almost the same, 35%, 37%, and nowhere near as much as 1977 to 1981 when it increased by 66%. Now, let me just say one other thing. Since rate hikes are functionally, they're price increases, right? I've said this, that the price of credit affects every other price in the economy because it affects the cost of production of goods and services. And since it is a price increase, a general price increase, we could look at it in the same way as we look at any inflationary period. And that triggers certain behavior. The behavior being when people think it's going to be more costly for them to wait, right? Because they anticipate that the price is going to go up, the rates are going to go up if they wait, that triggers their consumption and investment decisions now. They put them into action now because they know that if they wait, it's going to cost them more. And that actually is what drives the inflation spiral, right? It's almost a psychological effect or a psychological driver. So when if the Fed raises rates and if they say, hey, we're going to raise them some more, it's going to get people off the fence. It's going to make them. Now, at some point, it might be true that it reaches a point where the debt burden becomes too high and there's just people can't take on any more debt. But if you look at debt burdens now as a percentage of disposable income, it's at a 40-year low. So ostensibly, there's a huge potential for rates for loans to increase if the Fed starts raising rates. That's another reason I'm not worried about it. Not even to mention the fact that it's only going to be 25 basis points. It's silly. So there you have it. I got everything off the St. Louis Fed Fred database. Bye.